What's going on YouTube? This is Sean. I am back again, and in this video we are going to be working on Magneto, and I'm going to paint it a retro classic comic book color scheme, if you dig. Now I've already got my patterns plotted out, and I'm going to start cutting. Notice I started to put these 1 by 1 inch square on the bottom of the pattern. That way you guys are printing it out correctly and you have some type of reference. But that's not really gonna matter if you scale it up or down. So if you have a medium size head, which is 22 inches, measured around the forehead, then you're pretty much good. If you're new to my patterns, I usually make them in poster format, so that way you can just print them out in poster size, and you can change the tile scale in increments of 3% to change sizes. Like 100% would be medium, and then 103 would be a large, and 97% would be a small, and then you can change it even smaller or much larger. So yeah, just stick with increments of 3%. Now if you are going to use thicker foam, then you may want to increase by 1% to make up for the thickness of the foam. So that's kind of what I forgot to do with this, because I'm using 6mm foam when I usually use 5mm, and this helmet was a little bit snug on me. But yeah, I did go back and fix the patterns by 1% just in case. I mean, it's not a bad thing to have it loose, just you don't want it too loose. Right here I'm applying contact cement to all the edges of the foam. That way when it all dries, it dries at once, and I can just go ahead and put it on. A lot of people ask me what kind of contact cement I'm using, which is barge contact cement, but it's not in the actual container. I use a smaller container that I picked up at Home Depot, and it has that round bunny tail looking applier on it, which I like better than a brush. So if that's what you're into, then head over to Home Depot or Lowe's and pick up one of those little tin cans. They actually work better than plastic containers, because air can still seep through and your contact cement goes bad after a week. So yeah. Now I've already assembled one half of the helmet. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other half. Start by squeezing the top of the dome together, and then I'm going to put the topper piece together. I'm going to use the surface of my table to make sure my edges are nice and smooth. I usually use a wax paper to make things a little bit smoother, but I just didn't have any. Now that I have both sides assembled, it's time to put those two together, and it's coming together pretty nicely and easily. Then once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and try to push all the seams together, make sure everything is nice and neat. So far, so groovy. Now it's time to apply some glue for the accents. I've already went in and traced in the lines where I need to apply the glue, so it's actually easier to do this when the helmet is still flat. But yeah, just keep that in mind whenever you are tracing out your patterns. Now it's time to carefully apply the accent. I'm going to fold the accent in half and start in the middle, and then kind of work my way around the eye area and just around the edges of the helmet, making sure everything is nice and even. And whatever's not even, I'm going to go back and hit it with the Dremel and clean up the edges a little bit. But yeah, so far it's looking legit. And now it's time to go in and add the final trimming around the lower edge of the helmet. And I did include the patterns for it, but you can actually go in and cut yourself a thin strip of EVA foam or craft foam. I actually cut it in about 1/2 inch, and it seemed to work pretty nicely. Alrighty tidy, everything is starting to look like it's coming together. It's time to apply some heat so I can close the pores on the EVA foam. That way it doesn't soak in as much of the seal, and it also gives it a smoother finish. And I'm going to round off the helmet just a little bit using this 3-inch PVC pipe with a cap on it. And yeah, I use it very often. So if you're new to this channel, then and you're wondering what that is, it's just a piece of PVC pipe with a cap on it. Now I'm gonna go in and round off the edges and clean whatever was uneven around the eye and the mouth area. Now be careful with this. I mean, it didn't really make that big of a difference, so if you want to skip this part and because you don't have a Dremel, then that's fine. That's your prerogative. Do whatever. Now I'm gonna go in and apply a couple coats of Plasti Dip, some black one. Duh. Sometimes when the weather is too hot or too cold, I use Mod Podge, but since the weather is pretty nice, I took it out to my shop and use Plasti Dip. It actually dries a little bit quicker. Some people wait like 24 hours. Me, I just kind of wait like 30 minutes and then I'll go in and paint it. It all depends on the humidity, I guess, the weather. Give it about 24 hours if you plan on masking it off with masking tape. Now I've had this metallic acrylic paint that I purchased at Walmart for some time now, and I've never used it, so I'm going to give it a shot. Now I know that metallic paint works really good on black base, and I'm not quite sure how red metallic is going to work on black base, but I know like gold and silver works really good, so let's give it a shot. I'm going to shoot it through my airbrush, but before I do that, I'm going to dilute it down or thin it down with some Windex and some water. Now you don't want it too thick or you're going to clog up your gun, your airbrush, and you don't want it too thin, then you're gonna get like really runny paint job. So you want it like a really milky, not even milk, I don't know, but you know, somewhat thick consistency. I want to make myself a filter because I don't often have filters on hand, and I'm using some tool that I picked up from Walmart on a project or for a project that didn't work out, but the tool is useful for making filters. So I'll just make a cone out of a piece of paper and cut me a piece of tool, and then I'll shove it down to the bottom of the cone with a stick or something, and then I'm going to filter out the acrylic paint. This will take out all the big chunks that will clog up your airbrush, and if you do this, then you'll reduce the chance of clogging up your airbrush, and things will go a lot smoother, trust me. Now I'm using a cheap airbrush that I picked up from Harbor Freight, and I like using it. I mean, it gets really good coverage and it's very cheap, and I've been using this for a long time. You just got to make sure you clean it after every use. Even if you're going to let it sit for 10 minutes, I always take it apart and clean it. I'll just take the Windex and I'll shoot right into the nozzle, the tip, whatever. Now the first coat didn't get really good coverage, but after I got into the third and fourth coat, I noticed the red started to pop out. And remember, several thin coats dry faster than one really thick coat, so thin coat each time, and then once it's dry, then apply the next coat. Entirely up to you. I'm going for the retro classic comic book look, which is purple and I think it's like red, but this metallic turned out pretty good. Now it's time to go in and paint the accent, the trimming, and I'm going to use purple, which is my wife's favorite color, and she's probably going to cosplay this at the next convention. And yeah, I'm just going to use a paintbrush and carefully apply the purple around the accent. And if you're like me and most people that use acrylic paint, and your paint palette is always dirty because you forgot to clean it the last time you used it, and sometimes it's not that easy to clean, then use the bottom of a aluminum can. I'm using Bud Light, but it could be any brand you want. It doesn't really matter. I mean, and once you're done, you don't have to clean it. You can just toss it out with, you know, retro trash or recyclable. Well, here are some glamour shots for your viewing pleasure, and if you're into this kind of stuff, I mean, if you're really into this kind of stuff, then check the links in the description down below, and it'll take you to a link, a really special link, and yeah, and I guess that's it for this video. Make sure you hit that like button and leave me a comment because I really like them. And yeah, don't forget to follow me on all my social stuff. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one.